Let's talk herd.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we speak to each other, or yeah, it's amazing. I'll have to look into that. It sounds really
And
very
I didn't mean to take
interesting.
us off on a tangent, but as you were talking about the
No,
kitties,
it's
it
amazing.
came to mind.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the sound of that. Yeah. It's amazing how things just come at the right time, you know, they just appear in your life when you're ready.
But you have
So
to
how would you say it's
pause.
changed you? Absolutely. That is so true. The
No,
grace, you have to
you
let the
have to
grace.
pause. Yeah, you have to pause. How has
So
it changed me?
true.
Um, mm, uh, I think the biggest lesson for me right now is a very humbling lesson. Very humbling is being truly aware of my motivation. Like
Ah,
even to the point of like, what is my motivation for touching my horses all the time? Like, is that
mm,
like, what is it in me that I need? And so I'm reaching out to my horse to get that.
mm,
And and maybe I need to take care of that myself and not always be touching them or pausing. Like I did this morning. This has been the hard one. This is where my pauses are still pretty far away, is touching
mm.
the horses and touching my dogs. The pauses are still far away. But this morning I was able to catch myself sooner. And I had this automatic, because my horse Romeo, he's the black thoroughbred. He's the first horse I see, and he always sticks his nose out in the morning.
Mm.
And the first thing I do is do this to his sweet little face. Um, and I caught myself and I just put my hands down. I was like, oh my gosh, that's not for him. It's for me. It's totally
Mm.
selfishly because
Mm.
I need that, not for
Mm.
him. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I totally get that. I have to tell you about this really similar realization I had recently with Karamba. Because we haven't fully resolved this, but she's kind of, sometimes she gets very clingy. Like she keeps me away from the other horses. She doesn't let me go to them. Like she wants me just me to groom her and be with her. But then other times she can get a little bit, there's a sort of, she's a horse that's never, and I'm not sure about this, whether she just is like this or whether other horses lose it. But she's got this sort of wildness in her that can sometimes be a little bit like a hostility that you feel. So she's not just complete, you know, some horses you could just like do anything to and touch, or, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be like ethical for want of a better word, but you could do it and they wouldn't do, you know, they wouldn't. But whereas she's got this integrity that, so you have to be present all the time around her. So anyway, this day, this, she was kind of being this clingy way. And there was also that sense of like, like sort of some kind of hostility there as well. And I was like, God, I've got to like figure this out. I've got to sit with this and pause and just understand what's going on. And when I did that, I saw that I had put her in a prison, like with
Mm.
my expectations, because she's like always been my dream horse. Like whatever level, whether that would be like initially it was all about what we could do riding together. And then that's kind of changed and evolved quite a lot, but it's still her. And there's this such a strong bond, but it's also like I'm always like when I look at the herd out in the field, I always like particularly look for her. And there's like this concern that I have for her that I don't have with the others. And I realized it is very egotistical. It's like it's like a conditional love, it's very, I just felt it, like you say it, like reminded me, I just felt it in all of its like like it's real what it was. Like I just felt the truth of it in that moment. And
Mm.
it just made total sense that she was mirroring that, what I'd
Mm.
done. And as soon as I just realized it and acknowledged it, and it was gone like a spell. Like it was just gone. Like she was no longer, and I was going around all of them, and she was just resting. And she was completely calm. So it's
Mm.
not like it's just evaporated. There's layers to this. And it's almost like the hostility part is coming a bit stronger now. So there's more to it. But that, just the way that letting, just acknowledge, and not even necessarily, not doing anything about it, just witnessing it, just seeing, what I'd done with this, this projecting all this thing on her that that I'm sort of worried about her and concerned and anxious and trying to control and trying to create this thing together. And all of that was it just created this sort of prison that she was in. And that's why she wanted, it was just like she was sort of just acting that out, because that's what, I don't even need to go into why or anything, but it was so obvious. And as soon as just witnessing it, it was just gone. Like it was like a bubble that just burst. And suddenly she was a horse again. And she was just able to be a horse. And there wasn't this kind of, and it was a bond though. It's like you say with your horse. It was a bond, it was something that bonded us together. And it
Mm.
reminds me of this program I just watched on Netflix. It was really well done. It was a Spanish thing about this woman who abducted a child because she couldn't have one of her own. And she kept her for 5 years, and they did it really well, actually, 6 years, because they showed how this poor child just didn't flourish. She just kind of went from this amazing open child, and she just became like this little almost kind of twisted version of herself, because she was so terrified of strangers, because her not mother had made her be her child, and she was obviously had kept everyone out of her life because they were hiding, and there was just this whole false love thing. And I'd
Mm.
done that, I'd been doing that with her. So it's amazing just to be able to see that. But it's powerful, that, it's a powerful thing, because you feel like you've got this thing and you don't want to let it go. And yeah. So yeah, but when you do let it go, something much more collaborative, Susan, I was thinking that word,
Mm.
something much more real happens. Because then it's not about me and Karamba, it's about me, and it's about us, the whole herd. Like, we're all one being together. And yeah, and she's liberated from that. Yeah, powerful.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. It is, and I think it's quite prevalent, really, isn't it, that we do that because we're quite needy, I think, as humans. Now, do you kind of believe that comes back to a little bit our childhoods, that we don't have a very balanced childhood in general as human children? Yeah.
Anything to share, Susan?
Yes. I hear so many, echoes, in my own path and experience, and the intention piece and the why, has been coming up a lot for me. Why, why am I touching? Why am I, and Camille, you were talking about taking a walk, and the cat's coming along on the walk, and Dusty and I have, our own experience with walks, and I think, it's like, oh, I came in with this, and I can't even call this a sneaky expectation. I have plenty of sneaky expectations that I catch along the way, but this one was a very prominent expectation that, we were going to be walking buddies, and we were going to go on these great walks together and things like that. And, there was a point in our relationship that just started to feel very heavy. And I had a lot of frustration coming up for me, not only with myself of like, what am I doing wrong? And how come we can't walk together? And, is Dusty part cat because he, he likes to do his own type of walking. He has his own style. He's,
Yeah.
and Camille, you shone light on this earlier, that, there are horses who, whether, willing or not, will be haltered and can be led anywhere. And we don't always know if that is an equal participation of, yes, I want to be doing this, or if this is just, I'm choosing the path of least resistance because I don't like the other option, but I'm not happy about this. So it was very, this walking evolution we were on for a while. And I started to realize that I had, and we had it's amazing, the mirrors that come up. We had a very special dog, Oakley, who was in our life for a couple years, and he mirrored this also very well. And it really kind of took this combination of Oakley and Dusty for me to realize that the walking piece was really something that I wanted for myself. And I also wanted companionship in that. I said, oh, it's just, somewhere in my mind, I had invented that, doing these walks together, whether it was Oakley and I, or whether it was Dusty and I, that was somehow like the big picture. And I made what I will call for myself, a dangerous assumption along the way, that this was somehow exactly what they wanted and what they needed. And it was going to be just as healing and lovely for them as it was going to be for me. And that's when, I started getting into some very uncomfortable, again, my word, pieces with my, emotions, with the frustration. And, I was angry sometimes, like, why is this not working out? What am I doing wrong? Like, can't you come on board with this? I've done all these other things. And then you get into the conditional love piece, right? Like, I've done all these things for you. We did everything that you wanted to do. This is the one thing I want to do. And why can't we do it?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was also this very awkward moment of recognizing, this was something that I wanted. And is it fair? And so then we get back into the whole pause and the space and the witnessing of it, the comfortable and the uncomfortable in all of that. And recognizing that if I have a need here, first of all, is this a legitimate need? And for me, in this point in my life, like walking is a fair and legitimate need for me as a human being. But it is not always welcome by those that I share companionship with. So there was this moment of realization, and I had to go through the stumbling and bumbling, and two other souls were stumbling and bumbling with me on that because of my doing, patiently waiting for me to receive the message, that there are other ways that I can meet my needs without bringing unwilling participants along. And that willingness, it's not that there's not willingness there, but it's always an ask. It's never an assumed, like this is always going to be the same way every time. And I resonate, Sam, you shared about the touch also. And I resonate with that as well. Because there are pieces of that even woven in on the journey for both Oakley and also Dusty. And recognizing these needs, honoring the needs of my companions, partners, and as well as honoring the needs of myself, and recognizing that sometimes they're very much woven together, and we're having this real-time conversation, responding in the moment, thanks to the pause and the space that's available. And other times, in that space of the pause and realizing what's available, we may need different things at different times. So then we make different choices. I'm working on being able to be self-responsible for my needs. And instead of making assumptions that it's like, oh, well, others just come along for the ride with that or are there to meet my needs, it becomes a collaboration. Again, coming back to that word. And it's kind of this constant evolving dialogue. And it is constantly a practice, because there are those times where it's like, oh, I blew through the yellow light and I also blew through the red light. There's other times where it's like I see the yellow light and I'm like, oh, we stayed in the green zone today. Like this was lovely. So I appreciate what you both shared.
Analogy.
Wow. Yeah. And there's something about spontaneity that we find so challenging, don't we? It's like the other day, just when you were talking about walks there, Karamba decided she was in, they've got this summer barn that they come into in the summer usually because it's more breezy. And she decided she wanted to go out on a walk. Like it was obvious she was sort of communicating that to me. And we just haven't done that for ages. And I said, well, you'll have to have a head collar because it's not really that, because she can sometimes panic a little bit when she's on her own. And so I kind of brought her to it and I showed her and I said, or brought the head collar to her and said, do you mind if we put this on? Just, not necessarily so that I can have you holding you, but just so that it's there. And she was like, fine with that. She put her nose into it. She was quite happy to do that. And we went out for a really nice walk. And because they weren't used to it, the others, they were a bit like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Karamba's gone out. And that doesn't usually happen because for a while we haven't done that. I mean, at a certain point we were doing that a lot, but this day it was lovely and we did it. And she hasn't really asked since. Although Honey wanted to go out that day. And I said to Honey, well, we'll go out like another day. And so she went out another day. And that was, so it's like, we can let go of the routine, it doesn't have to be like, you might not do it you might do it once a year, or you might do it like every day of a week, but we have this thing, I think it's a fear thing or an insecurity that it just feels safer if we know, like in our mind, what we're doing. Like this is a rule. Like I find myself doing that even with what I would call spiritual realizations. I'm like, okay, this is how it is. Like I've had this realization. Okay, so that's it now. That's that. And then then you make another one, and And it's just like, you don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
that. It doesn't have to be like, each moment can just be a new experience. And yeah, so that's something I have to remind myself quite a lot. Just to kind
Yeah,
of,
me too.
yeah, yeah. I think it's something about just allowing yourself to be kind of flowed, like to be part of the river and just to be taken wherever. And that's kind of hard. So, making these like rules and stuff, or these routines, are like a safety. And maybe that comes back to your wildness, woman, because that's kind
Mm.
of what it's about, like letting
Mm-hmm.
go of those like safety nets all the time. Yeah. And I think you just have to kind of take it day at a time with that. Like, you just have to sort of maybe just, the more present we are, like in each moment, the more those experiences happen, and the less of the routine that we kind of are in. And you just, you just not like, because then you could make that into a routine, like being
Mm-hmm.
and being spontaneous is now the new routine and the new rule. So
Right.
that's the thing, I think. Yeah.
It's like our human brain so much likes to find patterns
Mm.
in the world that, even day-to-day life, if something doesn't fit the typical pattern, well, you can't do that. It's not the day to go walking with your horse or whatever.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
So many opportunities to learn and grow.
Mm. Yeah, there really are.
Well said.
What I love the most about it is just remembering the potential, just that magic that anything can happen, and it's always a new moment, and we just don't know what's possible. That's the biggest inspiration for me, I think. Just keeping entering into that. Yeah. Yeah.
Camille, that reminds me of, what you shared about love and it being there, right? And I think you just used the word possibility. And, I think um, when sometimes it can be very easy to feel alone
Mm.
or isolated, in our own experiences, um, that the fact that is always there, the
Mm.
love is always there,
Yeah.
the space is always
Yeah.
there, even when we don't feel it,
Mm.
or even when that might not be our direct
Yes.
experience, that it's there.
Mm.
Um, and I share that from a place that, and I'm still challenged by this, as I've, even though I've been practicing this now, it seems like for a very long time, that, I'm doing it wrong. Like
Mm.
if I miss the pause,
Mm.
or I really wanted that pause to happen at that particular time and it didn't, or I catch myself, you know, in a place of, touching Dusty, or when Oakley was with us, kind of reaching out for that and
Mm.
realizing, after the fact that it's like
Yeah.
they didn't,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want that at that time. And, I can easily get caught up in the shoulda, woulda, coulda,
Mm.
um, the, the wrong piece
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that. Um, but if I take a moment
Mm-hmm.
to go from that very like particulated place, and Sam, how you illustrated, there's that very like, there's the particle essence of light, And then there's also the wave. And, when I have those moments of coming back into the wave, I've recognized it's like, this has always been here. And I'm not wrong for not touching it all the time. It's just, there's all of these possibilities to learn. There's always these experiences to be experienced one way or another, however they're going to unfold. And that's really what helps shape and create, the next piece, so that, we can start experiencing, the more togetherness and the collaboration and the softening or narrowing of, some of those really big spaces of, wow, there was a lot of distance in between what happened and the pause. But the fact, now that I'm aware of the pause, I think back, I know there was a time that I wasn't even aware of that. So I think so much to be celebrated there, in the possibility, and in the space that love, and the unconditional love is always there, and the space is available.
Yeah, it's
that's a wonderful reminder.
Really reminds me of the last couple of meditations that I do. These meditations for Gabby, my sister, for her healing, but it's kind of like a healing for all. It's not like, it's not a sort of personal thing. It's like we just kind of create this, and it's open to everyone who wants to join. And one of them, the one before last, the big willow that I have here, Mother Willow, she said that she wanted to guide it, because it's like, usually just we go into source and just whatever comes up. And the last two have been all about this root system that we're part of, and just feeling it so palpably. And just this vision of all of these roots and this network of connections, and that we are the one root, and that and we're the flow in the roots. And even though we are individuals, it's like, it's kind of hard to put it into words, but there's no kind of there's no division between the roots. They're a system. They're like a network. And like you say, it's always there, and it's connecting us, deep into the source of everything. And it really is just about remembering. And I think that's part of being human as well, that you forget, and then you remember, and you forget, and then you remember, because we are separate physical beings. So you do forget. But then maybe it's the process of forgetting and remembering that's the sort of wave of like particle wave. And that's kind of, like you say, it's part of it.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. It's just the process, because only by remembering it do you really get that, wow, I'm part of everything. And then you're like separate again, and then you find it again, and it's like, yeah. So, and it kind of does work like that when you look at your life, and every time I think you reconnect, you're reconnecting a bit deeper and a bit wider and a bit more sort of sensitively, and yeah, really amazing. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
Very much
talking to you. Thank you so much.
I feel very full right now.
I feel like
thank you to you both.
Me too. Thank you. It has been an absolute joy.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah. I feel like our energies just come together really.
I agree.
Really beautifully. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for inviting us, Camille.
It's such.
Thank you to you both.
It really is
such
inspirational.
Pleasure
to kind of talk in this way and share, and it just feels amazing.